after watching the Do Not Lie to Me response video, I learned a lot of things actually, but 10 things that stuck out to me the most. The first one being that only 7% of communication is made through the verbal part of the communication, which leads me to my second point, being body language is what says it all. The way someone is acting or moving or just showing their expressions has to do with communication. It is the point number 3 is it is your body, your face, and your voice. So with the body, making certain gestures and certain expressions, along with the face, different faces you make, like possibly a fake cry. You can see in your face the expressions you would expect a person to make. And the third part of that is the voice. You have different rhythms and different tones, and all of those things can lead you to learning if someone is lying or not. 93% of point number 4, 93% of communication has to do with body language. So the way you express yourself and the different ways you move, you talk, you slouch, or anything to do with your physical appearance. Which leads me to point number 5. It's not what you're seeing, it's what you don't see. So it's the little things you don't really pay attention to. Yes, you can hear in people's voices and hear through their message what they're trying to say, but until you look deeper, you're never going to know if they're telling the truth or not. Point number 6 had to do with dominance. So something as little as who goes through the door first shows who is in power. The person who goes through last is establishing the dominant factor. They are the top person. They are going to show you what you need to do, how to do it, and where to go. Point number 7, body language doesn't always go with what is being said. So people can be expressing that they're upset and crying, but if you really pay attention to their expressions in their face and their voice, you don't really believe that they're upset. You can see that they're not really upset. Point number 8, when a person's closing their eyes, they're not always lying, but they're sometimes lying because they're trying to think of what they should say next to sound good in order to make the people believe their story. Just like the lady who killed her 2 kids, she went on stage and in front of everyone and had a fake cry that you could tell was fake, because when someone cries, they say that your nose swells up a little bit, your nose starts running, and all your sinuses back up, and you start to swallow a little bit and choke. But she had none of those, and you could tell she was just faking, opposed to her husband, who was clearly distraught, and you could see in his face that he was stressing about getting his children home through the wrinkles in his face and his concern. Point number 9, this one I actually already knew, but you could tell if a person is lying through the tone of their voice. Like a higher pitched voice, usually someone is lying when you hear their voice get higher. And when you start to hear it get higher, then you know that, part of it may be true, but something in it is telling them that that's not the complete truth. And that leads me to point number 10, which kind of goes back to point number 5, where I talked about the dominance thing. When shaking hands, you can kind of see who is more dominant and who has power in the situation. So like when someone shakes hands with someone else, it's where the phrase "the upper hand" comes from. Whoever's on top is usually the one with more power, or the higher, I guess, better leverage in the situation. And ways you could like use this in real life is if you have a friend that's acting kind of weird, their body's moving in weird ways, and they're talking to you, trying to tell you something, that kind of instantly, it's an instinct that you kind of tell something's off. But with those, like using these different examples, you can kind of see where you stand with that person, such as the dominance, or if they're lying, or if they're sincere. And I kind of think that plays a lot into getting a job. My first job, I was a lifeguard. Well, I actually didn't follow through with it, but I got the job. And I applied twice the year before, but the second year the first year I didn't get it. I went in, I was nervous. You could tell I was nervous. They could tell I was nervous. And I believe that led me to not getting the job. But the next year, I applied. I came in, I was a little more confident. I talked monotone, like try to keep my voice professional, I guess, and let them know I was serious about getting the job and that I wouldn't let them down and I was there to stay. And I believe that led me to getting the job and them deciding to hire me. It also had a little to do with my appearance. The first time I applied and went in for the interview, I was not dressed for the event, and the second time I dressed up a little more, cleaned up, made sure I was presentable, and I believe that also had another part in me getting the job. But overall, I believe this video had a lot of good messages. 10 wasn't really enough to show you how important that video was, but after watching it, I definitely learned some things, and I look forward to using them in the future to decipher who is lying, or maybe if something they're saying isn't true.